This is Power Lunch, Southern Africa. The next conversation is around the announcement of the imminent closure of ArcelorMittal's South Africa operations. They are looking at closing the Newcastle blast furnace with potential ripple effects on the automotive sector and the broader economy. And we want to explore a number of factors: job losses, impacts on steel-reliant industries, as well as some of the local international alternatives that are going to be affected or come in to fill the gap. For some of expert insights and a bit of analysis on the situation, we are joined by Renai Moothilal, the CEO of NAACAM. Renai, it's the losses are staggering, and I think you would do well by helping us just to understand the implications and the numbers involved in this particular closure.
Yeah, afternoon, Zanele. Thanks for having me. You're right. It's not necessarily the most positive way for, at least in the automotive manufacturing space, and I think wider manufacturing in South Africa, to kind of kick off the year. ArcelorMittal and its predecessor in South Africa, ISCO, has a very long history of supporting our manufacturing objectives. And I think, like you touched on, immediately you're looking at should that blast furnace in Newcastle close, not just the 3,500 jobs impacted at the furnace or the plant level there with AMSA, but immediate impacts across the base. In my own sector, in the autos component space, our assessment is should that shutdown go ahead as expected at the end of this month, it's more than likely that immediately we've got 3,000 jobs at risk. And probably as we go through towards the end of 2025, up to 13,000, based on the type of components that are likely to be impacted. So yeah, it's quite a serious issue. It's one that has been on the table for some time. It's not the first time they've announced that they're looking to close that plant, but as a sector, we were confident during the course of last year that some sort of resolution was on board through the engagements with the relevant authorities, and kind of went towards the end of 2024, not thinking that this was going to be the immediate problem. And it's not ideal that you get kind of a 2 or 3 week notice to find alternate plans.
I mean, I'm sure lots have been said and enough has been said, and perhaps industry not really hearing how big the challenge is. But Renai, we're talking about the motor auto industry. The value chain here is quite long. So are we looking at an impact that we're going to see right down to the performance of the country itself? Because it's a huge industry, be it local, be it international exports, be it the cost. And just generally, there's a roll on here that we can't see. You know, can you paint a picture of what that means just outside of what we see for motor manufacturing?
Yeah, I think absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. I think the auto sector in South Africa and globally is one of the most interconnected value chains, especially from a manufacturing perspective. Here in South Africa, you've got probably somewhere around 180 direct suppliers to automotive assembly plants, and an innumerable number of smaller, let's call them lower tier suppliers. So the value chain is quite extensive. It contributes significantly to the country's GDP in terms of the export basket. You're looking at an autos export basket, I think makes up about 15% of the country's manufactured exports. So it's a really, really key sector. The kind of impact that we're talking about, in the moment you start, you would understand this. You can't assemble 99% of a vehicle. Yeah, if one critical component is missing and you can't find a way of timeously substituting for that, you run the risk of shutting an entire vehicle assembly line, and then you've got all the other 100 of component manufacturers being impacted by those volume cuts. The sector has not kind of benefited from significant volumes over the last year or so. We've seen volumes decrease for a range of reasons, and I think this is probably just another one of those challenges that we wouldn't have wanted to see come through.
You know, in previous discussions that we've had, there was always conversations around policies to enable the industry to thrive, competitiveness, and what's not being said clearly enough is it problematic? Is it not being done at a fast enough pace to ensure that the sector thrives? You know, what is your stance now on the implications of not rising up to policy and protection that's required?
Yeah, I think this particular one is it's not a cut and dried affair. I think the steel production environment in South Africa, including the kind of products that are being or spoken about, is facing a challenge globally in that there's significant levels of capacity in terms of steel manufacture, and the kind of products that ArcelorMittal is looking to close into the autos value chain are really high-tech, require a level of specialized input and production that they kind of have been struggling to make a business case work. Having said that, the reality is if we are serious about having a long-term, vibrant autos economy, of which I'm a very, very big fan and advocate of, because of the numerous economic benefits that comes out of autos production, I believe the country as a whole, all stakeholders, kind of need to be serious and say, listen, what are our key strategic inputs? Where does our competitive advantage start and end? And how do we find ways of supporting that? So for me, the discussion right now is not so much about ArcelorMittal, the company, but it's more about the asset and the kind of products that are coming out of that plant, and how is it our supporters in the government space who are very clear about wanting. I mean, we've got an SA Autos Masterplan up until 2035. So there's very clear direction. We want to see the sector grow, but at the same time need kind of quick responses to find ways of protecting the products that are needed in autos manufacturing, and to not. I think our biggest ask right now is that a 2 or 3 week notice period to find alternate plans. You know, suppliers only have maybe 3 up to 6 months of stock that they can work. You need at least a 12-month buffer period. You need stock to build up. You need to be able to find alternate suppliers. They don't exist in South Africa right now. You know, it's quite conceivable. My biggest concern is that we're not looking to substitute. You could have a situation where customers are not going to substitute a material. They're simply going to say, let's import the finished component here into South Africa and get it onto an assembly line. Then we've got lower levels of local content and less economic benefit. So I think the points made, it is something we'd like to see addressed at policy and at business relationship level fairly.
And again, we regress after having made so much progress in the sector. So now the question is, what can be done to buy us more time to be able to not lose out completely, and for the value chain and for everybody involved to lose out? What is being done? What can be done?
I think there's a lot of high-level discussions going on at the moment. I wouldn't want to presuppose and jump into what some of that is. As a sector, both ourselves and the OEMs are very clear. Whatever it is, find ways of ensuring that sufficient time and sufficient buffer stock is available. You know, whether state mechanisms like the IDC or whoever the agencies are that can step in to support all of this, we would like to see that happen, and decisions made with a level of urgency.
Thank you so much, Renai. I think, as you said earlier on, we really need to show that we are serious about industrialization, and this perhaps could be what pushes us to find ways and to bet on the right solutions. Thank you so much for your time, Renai Moothilal, the CEO of NAACAM. Time to tune into a trending topic, driving conversations around the world, and that is on TikTok leaving the US. So join me for that conversation. I'll be back in just a moment.